All right, folks, welcome back to the Aligned and Unstoppable podcast. I'm very excited today because I have a special guest with me, which I don't have a lot of guests on lately. So when I invite people, it's kind of a big deal. You're like, I don't have parties, but now I'm having a party. It's just for you. So I have special guest, Sara Yagoub, who's here. And we're going to have kind of like a broad, possibly triggering conversation. So get ready, folks. But before we do, I would love to have everybody in the audience get to know you a little bit better. It's funny, we have been like Instagram friends. We have a couple of mutual friends, and we just started our call. And I'm like, I feel like we already know each other. And that's that soul connection where you're like, oh, wait a second. This is like our first like hangout. This is awesome. But I would love for you to introduce yourself and sort of just tell people a little bit more about you.
Thank you. Thank you, Emily. And I feel the same way. First of all, I love that you're having me on as, it's a party and a celebration because I love that. But I do feel like we've known each other forever, even though this is the first time we're really physically talking to each other outside of like social media. But so a little bit about me. I'm Sara Yagoub, like Emily mentioned. I am an entrepreneur is what I call myself, but I've also gotten into spiritual mentoring, and that was 100% organic. It wasn't the trajectory I was going on. I have several businesses, 2 7-figure and then another 6-figure. And so my goal in life initially was to be this business mogul with all this business empire and just keep going for more. And then the universe and God had a different plan for me because I was actually stopped in my tracks when I went through a spiritual awakening, and it kind of made me question everything that I thought that I wanted. Mm-hmm. And it really made me start to get into better alignment with what I want versus the things that I thought that I wanted that was maybe put on me in the pressures from societal conditioning, but also some of that ego as well. When you go down the path of entrepreneurship and you find that you are really good at what you do, totally. And then it kind of, lures you in. So when I had that spiritual awakening, it was like an abrupt stop, and it just really made me question everything I thought I knew. So then I had to release or shed the layers of the things I thought I knew and just kind of unlearn, what I had been conditioned to believe. And so now I'm on this new journey, which is my organic timeline, which is just in alignment with God, serving others. I'm still an entrepreneur, but now I go in accordance to like, I'm led by source 100%, mm-hmm. not so much by ego, which by the way, has been extremely relieving and freeing and liberating. So I highly recommend it, but there is an ugly part.
It is. And being led by source, it's nice to say it, right? It's like we say it kind of lightly, but to truly be led by source is every time you have those ego interruptions and your own opinions and wanting to control the outcome and to have your own goals and all of it. It's like you kind of get like spirit dope slapped every day into being like, really? So she says it so lightly, right? But this is a big deal. I would love to hear more about like your spiritual awakening, because I know a lot of people who are listening are either on that just about to have it or they have been cracked open and they are kind of going through their dark night of the soul experience of like, shit's hitting the fan and doesn't feel very good. And then also the people who've on the other side of it who are like, I'm fine now. It happened. It's a thing of the past.
Yeah.
So I'd love to hear more about your experience.
Sure. And it's funny how like that journey is, because sometimes even when we think we're through the thick of it, then you're slapped with another one. You're like, oh, okay, I guess I'm going through this again. So, but for me, I do think that there was a lot of little initiations throughout all of my life from childhood on. I've always felt kind of like the black sheep, or that I didn't fit, or that I was actually having to, mold myself and put myself into these little boxes to make myself normal to people.
Totally.
I don't know if you feel the same, Emily. I'm sure you do.
100%.
The crystals in the background kind of give me indication that maybe you went through the same thing. So it's just like, I always felt like the black sheep. And so I think those were a lot of little spiritual initiations, because, when you sit down with a group and they're like, you're a weirdo, that's like one of the initiations. You're like, am I different from everybody else? And so I think, I don't know that I really ran away from that. I was always weird. And so I just embraced the weirdness. So I had a lot of little initiations, but I think for me, what really opened my eyes to everything was when I was striving in my corporate world and I realized that corporate grind wasn't working for me because it was actually draining me of all my life force energy, which a lot of corporate jobs tend to do.
Yeah, they're very good at that.
Yeah, exactly. And so then, but even when I jumped out of that corporate world and into entrepreneurship, unfortunately, I took all of the bad habits from corporate. Now, fortunately, I did take the good habits, which is what helped me to build the businesses to where they got to. But for me, it was always like an ego driven goal. Like I always was striving for more and I never felt good enough or worthy. And so I put this big goal in entrepreneurship in my head of like 7 figures. And I thought, once I hit that, for sure I'm worthy, right? Like, okay, everything else I've done, maybe, okay, I can talk my way out of it. But if I hit 7 figures in entrepreneurship, that means I am worthy of being on this planet, right? And so guess what happened when I hit 7 figures? Nothing, because I still felt unfulfilled. I still felt less than, I still felt lack, scarcity. I felt, this negative self-talk didn't go away because I was looking externally for something that I could never get externally. You know what I mean? Yes. That could only come from within and from doing the real work, not, the work that you might have to do in the 3D, in the regular world. But if you're looking to that to make you happy or fulfilled or satisfied or abundant, that's not going to do it for you. Right. So that is when I hit my real spiritual awakening, is when I hit 7 figures and I realized I was spiritually bankrupt and no amount of money was going to fill that hole. So I went into a really, really deep, dark night of the soul where I questioned everything. I questioned, like, why am I here? Who am I really? What, is there God? I mean, at that point I was just like, is there a God? Because surely God wouldn't put me on this earth just to be miserable. You know what I mean? So like, I just really started to question, like, okay, what are my real goals? Like, what do I really want in life? Like, what were the things other people told me I should do? So then I just took that on as like my identity, when really it was not my identity. You know what I mean? So it was just a really deep, like dark, black hole that I was in for a long time. And it wasn't until I really decided that like I was going to go within, because I couldn't find the answers to this stuff internally, So I really did turn to, first of all, I will give you a huge shout out. You helped me out during that time because I was listening to a lot of your meditations and the things that you were doing, but I was really getting into like learning who I am inside. And it's really helped me when I was able to do that, because then I realized I was able to pull off the layers. I was really able to see like, okay, what's this deep trauma and these wounds that I have, and this negative self-talk and this disconnection from, my true self, and the misalignment, of like putting on all these boxes that I was putting myself in. It was taking me away from my true essence. And so I just had to relieve all that so that I can be myself again,
Oh, you gave me such a huge chill when you said just digging into those old traumas and those old wounds. And I think that's what, especially as entrepreneurs, we're so focused on like, push, drive, go faster, go harder, get more. And we're not actually looking at the root and the core issue of why maybe that's not working, or why it's so hard, or why you're having all these sleepless nights and pushing yourself to that brink. I also listened to your podcast, Renegade Radio podcast, when you first launched it, and I heard your Doctrine of the Soul story, and hearing you talk about when you hit that 7 figures and like nothing happened. And I felt that so deeply too. I'm like, that's how I felt when I hit my 6-figure mark, because I had been historically a broke healer and just never having anything, like literally just pinching. And that dark night of the soul was basically all of my 20s and my very early 30s, where I was just like, it just can't be this. It can't only be this. And that deeper soul searching that happened to me as well. And when I hit 6 figures, because I was doing the same thing, I'm proving myself, I'm proving my worthiness. I did the thing. I got to this coveted milestone, which is total arbitrary bullshit. And like nobody actually cares. No. And I was just like, now what? Like, I don't know. And when I did look at that deeper wound for myself, it had to do with proving my worthiness to my father.
Yeah.
And like, am I good enough by his standards? And like, okay, so I've been doing that in this lifetime.
Yeah.
What else have I been doing? For how long have I been doing it? And where are these wounds? And so we're going to kind of crack this open a little bit into the different dimensions, because, you know, one of the things that we were talking about before this episode is like, I want to talk about different dimensions and different timelines and like, what does all that mean? Because for me, I'm like, okay, so there is this 3D. Let's just talk about like 3D, meaning like here and now, I can see this pen, I'm sitting at this chair, this is this reality, and my human conditioning of my thoughts and my beliefs and my ego, like I'm good, I'm bad, I'm Emily. That's what I understand to be the 3D. And in my spiritual experience, now this is like, and this is where I was like, Sarah, please record with me because I need help. Because I've never had any formal training. I've never read any books about 5D or other dimensions. But what spirit has taught me is it's kind of like you're in an elevator and you just like press the dimension you need to go to for the thing you need to receive. And that's what you need to do. But also within the context of, I have cleared my space, I've cleared my energy, I'm only available for this specific type of energy. I'm not available for other types of energy, other forces, other entities, or anything. And so when I'm plugged into this like vacuum of only light, and I go, all right, so what is it that I need to do? What do I need to know? What do I need to see? And I feel led to go to 5D. Okay, I'm in 5D, and there's this, in my opinion, because I'm super visual,
Yeah.
I see more vivid colors, vivid shapes. I see like what people describe when they're tripping on mushrooms, of like, you know, like an echo footprint of plants,
Yeah.
of animals, of life force. And I mean, even when I'm not consciously plugging in to these higher dimensions, I can literally sit outside and see shapes in the air. And like, people are like talking about doing all these, I'm like, I don't think I really need to do mushrooms because like I see shit all the time anyway. Because I feel like that opening, I think, I don't know. I feel like I'm open to that and I'm aware of that. I'm also super connected with the earth and the flow of energy and cycles. But there's also more than 3D and 5D. I mean, I've gone into hundreds dimensions and different space, and where there is no nothing, like it's just space and information. So this is my weird explanation of what I know.
Yeah.
True. I would love to hear your experience, because you did kind of mention like the 3D, like, is there God? Is there more than this here and now? And you obviously have your own personal experience. I know you said you read a book about it too, that maybe wasn't your favorite thing either, but I would love to know like your take on this.
Sure. And so I agree with you that I think we all have our weird ways of explaining the dimensions, because here's the thing. No one's going to be able to give us a, like, this is for sure how it is. This is the science book that proves this is the right dimension. Who can do that? Nobody can do that. Right.
Yeah,
like not on this planet.
No.
So I agree with you that I think that all of us are kind of explaining it in whatever way we experience it and whatever way makes sense to us. And it might be totally weird to somebody else, and that's okay. But I do believe that, I think that the reason I was led not to read any books about it, right? Because the reason that I got into even wanting to know about the dimensional spaces is because during meditations, we're going somewhere else. Okay.
Yeah,
like, I don't care where you're going, but you are going somewhere else. And so when I started to meditate, I was really like, okay, something's happening to me and I need to be able to explain this even just a little bit. Like, even if I don't understand from the get-go, like what's exactly happening, I just need some hint as to what this is. And I'm a true believer that, like, when you ask from like a pure intention of a pure heart space, like that, the answers come to you. Yeah. And so that's what happened to me, is that as I was traveling during meditation, I wanted to know where I was going. And I will say that I'll just go very lightly into this, is because one of the times when I was going into meditation, I went into a space where I was thinking that I was meeting like a spirit guide. And so what happened is when I went into this place, and I didn't know what it was back then, I was met with like a spirit guide that at first I felt like was a good spirit, because it was very like nurturing and kind. And it was just like guiding me and giving me little pieces of advice. Right. And so I was like listening to them. And then out of nowhere, I think as I was growing like stronger in my spiritual practice, I was questioning like the spirit of like, okay, well, like, who are you? You know, like, I'm just curious, like, where are you at, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because, you know, you're in a meditation anyway. I'm just a curious person. I ask random questions all the time anyway.
Yeah.
So I was
My
asking,
husband does too, which is makes him a very good travel buddy. I'm like, why would you even ask that? Now I want to know the answer.
it's you either like it or you think it's really annoying. But
yeah, many people do find him very annoying. I mean, he can be that way, but it's a great quality to have. You're my people.
Yeah. We just ask questions, you know? So I was asking the spirit, I'm like, hey, who are you? Like, what are you doing? And blah, 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 you know, just random questions. And so, you know, I could tell like the spirit was getting like irritated, and I'm not clairvoyant, so I can't see things as clearly. I'm more like clairsentient. Like I just know.
Yeah.
And I think actually that's claircognizant. And I'm also clairsentient, where I feel, and it's just like a deep knowing and a feeling that like, I know exactly what it means. There's no words needed. Right. But immediately as I started asking these questions, I could tell the spirit was getting really irritated, you know? And I was like, hold on a minute. I don't think like good spirits like get that mad when people ask questions.
Truth. And you know this, and you know this. Yes.
It's funny because as I speak about it now, it's like, if I knew then what I know now, I would have definitely known that this was evil right from the get. But, or just at least mischievous. Actually, later on, I found out it was evil. But, so that's what led me to like question things. Is I was like, I don't like this space. And as that spirit was getting mad, I took myself back out of it, you know, out of the meditation. And I was like, what just happened to me in there?
Yeah.
And so that turned me off from meditating for just a little bit. Cause to be honest with you, I was scared, you know, cause I was like, I didn't think this kind of stuff could happen. So then I turned to what I knew to be true inside, which is my source connection. I stopped asking spirit guides. I stopped saying, I'm going to pray to the universe, or I'm going to pray to whoever, right? I was just like, listen, there's one thing I know for sure is truth. And that was God's source. Cause I felt it inside me. You know what I mean?
Yes,
so I
do.
Like, let me not talk to even my higher self right now. I was just at a point where I retracted, you know, I just was like in a cocoon, and I was like, I don't really trust anybody. So there's one that I can trust, and that's God. So I turned to that and I said, like, can you please like explain this to me? Show me, like, what did I do wrong? Like, how did this happen? Like, what am I supposed to pick up from this? What did I need to learn from this? And so that was when I just think information and downloads were brought to me. Like, I will say that during that time I did fast. So I was doing, I think, just a water fast at first, and then it switched to a juice fast. I wasn't drinking any alcohol. I was grounding every day. I was cleansing. You know, I was doing like the salt bath. So I was using all the tools, right? And so when I became that very clear channel, the download and the divine download came to me, and it was like, where you are at is the astral. It's the 4D. Okay. So then it became clear. So then I'm like, okay, God, well, then what's the 3D really like, you know? So then it became, you know, the dimensions, it's kind of hard to explain because it's, I think it's better in a visual versus like speaking it, but I will tell you my understanding of it. Okay. So the 3D, like you said, it's like this physical table, we see it, right? But within the 3D, there's matrix or matrices, right? And so there's the 3D matrix, like me and you, we're living in this 3D world. Now we might have moved from our lower chakras, right? Which is like, you know, survival mode. People who are in the 3D matrix, they're in survival mode. They're in that rat race of like lack, scarcity. I don't have enough. They don't know if they're connected to God. They might not even question God. They might not even think that they come from a higher power. They don't know what's going to happen to them when they die. They don't know that there's anything outside of this world that they can physically see and hear and feel. Right? The news tells them something. They believe what's on the news as it is without any question. They believe this life is finite. Okay. Even if they doubt it, but they're going according to the status quo, whatever the status quo says, that you're supposed to, you know, go to school, you're supposed to go to college, you're supposed to get a job, you're supposed to work that job till you die. You're supposed to be busy every morning. You're supposed to come home after work and be so busy and tired that you just get drunk or get high and, you know, pass out and watch Netflix. And then you do that till you die. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And that's it.
Yep.
And there's no judgment on people living in that rat race, which is the 3D matrix, because that matrix is extremely magnetizing. Like when people, it's a prison. And sometimes people, dependent on lots of different things, their trauma and their ancestral trauma, what has happened in the past, their soul contracts, dependent on so many different things. Some people cannot break free from that. Like they don't see it as a prison. They're in it. They're just enslaved to it. It is what it is. They don't even question it because that's all that they know. You know what I'm saying? And then those of us like us, yes, we're in this 3D world, but our headspace and our heart space, more importantly, is not in that 3D matrix.
Right. And I'm going to jump in too, because I think part of also where you and I growing up were the black sheep. We didn't fit in. We were trying to be forced into fit in and be like everybody else, but like something was weird about us. This is also what is like the early signs that, you know, we don't get as stuck in, because there's like this knowing behind the scene is like, really? Is this it? This can't be it. This cannot. It's not. Like, I know it's not. I just don't know how I know it's not. And it takes some time. It takes that pattern interrupt. You know, an object in motion tends to stay in motion. These laws are universal. And so there does need to be a pattern interrupt. And for all of us who have had spiritual awakening, it's because there has been a part of us praying for it. Like, I know it's there. I know it's there. I know it's there. Help me, help me, help me. You are asking for it. I know I was asking for it. I was like, can't get darker than this. Come on. Let's like ask better questions and have that shift, that pattern interrupt. Absolutely. And I love that you also call it a matrix. And I also love the movie, The Matrix. BT dubs. Because it does help you kind of like wrap your head around, like, what is it that we're seeing? And I feel like when I started to learn about Akashic records and past lives, and I started to do practice sessions, I did like, I don't know, 50 practice sessions, and I would take notes on them. I'd look back at the notes on them and I'd see these patterns. And then I got, so many hundreds of patients later, and I'm like, okay, I don't even care what lifetime this came from. It's just been there. Like, because I used to be like, okay, where did it begin from? What year was it? What lifetime was it? Until Spirit was just like, it showed me basically like a thread and like a funnel going down. It was like, just go to the root. Okay, great. Right. And I was like, I don't need to know like all the little details of like along the way. Just go to the root, clear it. What do we need to do? Clear it. Okay, I'm going to clear that. Okay, what do we need to bring in? Okay, I'll do that. And it's 100% spirit led. It has nothing to do with me. And I don't know where I was going with this, but basically about this matrix of like, we are, and maybe I'm jumping ahead, but we are living in here and now in this lifetime, but also in multiple lifetimes, past, present, future, simultaneously, which is why when you do healings on any level, but when you're really doing like a soul level healing, you're healing from all lifetimes. And you're clearing generational trauma for yourself and everybody who's connected to you in any spectrum. On your lineage.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And I think that's where, when we break out of that 3D matrix, we learn about our multidimensionality, and it makes living in this space, right? In this 3D world, this hard world, it makes it a lot easier because you realize this is a blip on the radar, and it's okay. Like, we are here for a reason. Like, we're ground crew, because there's also the trap of people who are like, so multidimensional that they're in the stars and they're lost, and they forgot, like, wait a minute, we're on planet Earth right now, and we're going through a massive awakening on planet Earth. Like, we need you here. You're ground crew. You're here for a reason. Like, so it's real important that even though when we break out of the 3D matrix, we don't want to get trapped in one of the 4Ds or the 5D matrix, which is like, you're so far multidimensional that you're not even remembering why you're here and what's happening on this planet right now. You know what I mean?
I do. And I find, so I went to energy healing school when I was 18 years old. So like, I knew a lot of people who were very esoteric and very ethereal. And I was always like, dear God, like, you can't even talk to them because they're in another dimension. They're on another planet.
And I always ask people like that questions like, when do you pay your taxes? Like, at what point do you come back down and just say, oh, I got to pay this tax real quick, you know?
No, or they're like, it doesn't happen. Like, I don't need, like, whatever. I'm not even gonna go there. but also there's always been a dissonance with people like that for me, because when you are really grounded, I mean, obviously, like the tagline for this podcast is a down to earth approach.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what attracted me to you too, because it's like when I first was getting into a lot of this stuff and I was just like, who is leading like meditations and stuff like that? That's not, disconnected. Yes. You know what I'm saying? Like because there's a disconnect. There can be disconnects that happen at every level. And there's the disconnect that happen where people's consciousness is in the cosmos and they're disconnected from what's happening on this planet. And then there's people who are on this planet and they've disconnected from their galactic and their solar family and, you know, their solar consciousness. So then they're just like, they're trapped in this. So it's like, we want to make sure we realize that we're multidimensional so that we can get through this lifetime without getting stuck in the like, oh, I don't have enough, or, you know, oh, you know, if you're having health issues, you don't think like this is really the end. You know what I mean? Like there is an afterlife. So then it gives you a hope that like, okay, hey, I might be going through a difficult time, but this is temporary, right? Yeah. So we do want the multidimensional aspect so that we remember that, but we also don't want to get stuck in like this finite world and think like this is all there is, because then you lose all hope, you know?
Yeah. I agree. And you know, it's coming up is for kids. So I don't know about your kids. I know you have 2 kids, right?
I do. Yes.
Okay. Me too. And so my son, Tristan, who is 6, he has always had this like conversation about death. Like it's always, we talk about all the time. And he would say things like, you know, well, what if we die? Like, I don't want to lose you. Go, we'll never be lost. We always have each other, no matter what lifetime. And he's like, well, when I come back, I always want to be with you. I'm like, don't worry, you can. And like, we have these open conversations. I'm curious because my husband gets kind of wigged out when we talk about death. Mm-hmm. I think he has a fear of death. And I mean, he's also like an old school New England bro kind of guy. Yeah. And so, you know, I'm definitely a weirdo in that, like, obviously he attracted me, so
he's got a little weirdo in him too.
Yeah. He's like woo friendly a little bit. But when we talk about it, he'd be like, don't talk about that. It's like, we're gonna die, we will physically die. Do you have these conversations with your kiddos too?
Yeah, so I have a 4-year-old. He's not there yet. You know, I don't think he doesn't really talk about death, but my 8-year-old, and she's a girl. So, you know, there's a lot that goes with that as well. We hold a lot of wisdom differently from our male counterparts, but, she is very intuitive, and she has always talked about death as well. And she's even told me certain things, like, she's like, you know, the last time we were here, like I was in charge of you. Like she'll tell me stuff like that. Yeah. She's very like, I know she was a general in a past life. Like I can tell, you know? And so she's extremely like, she knows about like the connection and all that stuff. My husband, he is coming along. And I always like to say this, cause like he's also he's a Texas bro, which if you don't know anything about that, they are as bro gets. Okay. Like they don't, you know, they're just real, like what you see is what you get. Like they don't want to talk about the external, because they're just like, this is hardcore. You know, they got their cowboy hats and their guns. They're cool. So for them, you know, my husband's come a long way, because he in the past was like anti all of this stuff. And then slowly but surely.
Mine too. Same.
Yeah. They're coming along. I mean, if we can talk just really quickly about like what's happening on the macro level, is that we're all being upgraded, right? Yeah. Like, I don't know if you feel it. I'm sure you do.
God, yeah.
But I'm sure your listeners do too, is like, how much growth have we done in the last 18 months? It's something that in past lives, it took lifetimes. Yes. You know what I mean? And so like, to me personally, I always say, I feel like in the last 18 months, I've grown 10 years worth of growth. You know what I'm saying? Sure. Yeah. And so I feel like we are at this accelerated like growth period. And so first of all, I do feel like the females are, if you are genetically coded as a female, okay, I know this is controversial to people, but it's like, there's an agenda for us to stop talking about gender, and gender is really important to talk about, because our female vessels, our DNA coding is coded to be the leaders and the pioneers. That's why right now, if you hear in the spiritual community, people talking about the divine feminine coming back, the divine feminine did come back. Many of us that maybe identify on a multidimensional level as a male, that is me. I came into this lifetime in a female form for a reason, because we are the pioneers leading into what is going to be like the greatest period on this planet, where we are liberating from the systems of enslavement, which is what the 3D matrix is. You know what I mean? So for our husbands, like if you're married to a man and he's a little bit behind you, that's okay, because you're doing, like, just like what you mentioned, we are doing the work for not only our lineage, but also our unit here on this planet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then the kids, they're coming in and they can talk about it because they knew what they were coming into.
Yeah.
When
they signed up for us.
Yeah.
Yeah. They chose us.
A lot of times these kids are more highly encoded than we are. Like
for
we're doing a lot of, like, just like you mentioned, you're a healer, you know this, we're healing because we've been put through a lot on this planet, not only in this life, but in past lives. So there's a lot of DNA healing and regeneration that we're doing during this time. And that's why we're into healing. You know what I mean? So as we unlock our DNAs, that's why some people, if you don't understand the dimensions, that's okay. Because as we're going through this process, you're going to continue to unlock your coding, which is in your DNA. You can't, like, you know, it's in there. You know what I'm saying? Now you can mess with it. So just be careful not to tamper with your DNA. But as long as you allow the process to happen naturally, organically, which is what's already happening to this planet, the energies that are coming down are going to support you. You're going to unlock that DNA, and then you'll know about all the dimensions. Everybody will be clear something, you know what I'm saying? Because it's like, it's inevitable. It's going to happen, you know?
Yeah. And you mentioned the past 18 months. And so I have some friends who are, you know, astrology geeks, and they have been seeing this like in the stars coming, like something is coming, like to the T, like they know the date when it's happening. And I know, like, my friend Kim Woods, we did a year ahead forecast for 2020, and she even said it then, like, she's like, something is really shifting this spring, you better be ready for it. And for some people it's going to be like awesome because you've been doing the work, and for some people it's going to hurt. And I think this is also part of why, when you are plugged in, when you're allowing spirit to lead, it doesn't feel as painful. Like, it's hard, for sure, for all of us, it's hard, and there's all these things going on and mind F's happening. But when you're actually plugged in, it's okay. And I kind of made a joke, like, it's like 2020, everyone's having like these catastrophic, like, bad things happening. Like, it's so bad. It's so crazy. People are like, how are you? Like, oh, it's awful. I'm losing my job. Businesses are closing, terribleness. And I'm like, I feel like I'm out to dinner with a bunch of friends and all their food is terrible. And I have like the best meal ever. Like, work has never been better. Like, my relationship, it, even though like it felt like it was breaking apart, it was being cracked open and it was shifting. And we had like we had a literal miracle happen. And, you know, as far as like that timeline, that 18-month timeline too, that's also when the shift happened with my husband, of like, he was always like, I don't know about this thing that you do. And he became like my biggest supporter. And it wasn't because I was forcing it down his throat enough and like making him like it. It was because I was just doing me, not at all concerned with what he was doing. Not in like a mean, negative way, but just like, listen, I'm being led, like, I can't not do this. So like, and I use this thing as like, listen, I'm a train on tracks and I am going. You either hop on or just get out of my way, because I can't, like, it's not stopping. I am going.
It's funny because I use the same analogy with my husband, because he told me at one point, like, I feel like for me, it was happening before 2020. It was happening like in 2019. I always feel things before everybody else feels them. I'm sure you probably feel the same. So in 2019, I remember my husband saying to me, you're becoming even weirder and I don't like it. He was like, you're changing and it's not for the better. Like, he said that. And I still joke around with him till now because I poke him a little bit, because it's hilarious. Because at that time I wasn't even triggered by it. I was just like, I told him the same analogy you just used. I said, I'm on a bus and this bus is going forward. So you either hop on or I'm going to drag you. See, I wasn't going to leave him behind, because I'm just like, I don't know. I feel like I can't, you know, but I was like, you're going to get dragged. But I truly feel that's the way, because here's the thing. The true analogy is that the earth is the planet. She's getting the upgrades. If we want to stay chilling with earth, we go along with her or we get dragged, because she's going and we're all on here. So it's like, do we want this period of time to be super difficult and we're fighting the whole time and we're resisting the inevitable? Or do we just want to surrender to the point that, like, we're just like, listen, this is uncomfortable. I mean, I'm not saying it's easy. This last 18 months, I don't know who can say it's been easy. Like,
yeah, I agree.
I think we've all like had some kind of turmoil, right? However, those of us who have surrendered to it and just been like, listen, it is what it is. I'm just going to go with this and just see what happens. I think it's been a lot easier for us. I didn't feel like I've been suffering in 2020. I do feel like it's the best year I've had in my life and my family's life, you know?
Me too. Best
and I don't feel any guilt or shame saying that, because we've already gone through the hardships so that it was easier for us because we've been through it already. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I will say this, when the like pandemic started and like this whole fear like started to really escalate and get really thick and heavy, I went out in nature a lot. Like, I mean, I'm out in nature every day. Like, I mean, on a spectrum of how much I'm out in nature, it was a lot comparatively. And there's some trees that I really love to hug. They're just big and like their bark is super thick and chunky. And and it's actually in a neighborhood near me. Like there's houses literally around it. And I just grabbed on and like I just like stuffed my face in the bark and I'm just like, what is going on right now? Yeah. And the tree was like, this is gonna pass. Just like, do you worry about winter coming? Yeah. Right. And then spring. Yeah. And summer. And it was like showing me all the seasons. Like, are you freaking out as those seasons happen? Or do you just accept that there's a seasonality and there's a cycle to everything? There's a life, there's a death, there's a like regeneration. Like this is just another cycle. Yeah. And I was just like, oh, cool. Okay. All right. I get it. And like, that was it. Yeah. And that's where it's like the tree, it like took any of the fears that I had been holding on. And we talk about like the 3D, those fears that worry, like it is what it is. Yeah. Cause you can feel it. Like, you're like, it's not mine, but it's like strangling the life out of me. And I can't get out. And hold on to the tree. It's like, And I think that's part of it is like, we're so disconnected from nature. We're so inside, we're on our devices, we're plugged into technology and you don't know where to go, who to trust and what to listen to. So you find your outlet and then the algorithms just like pound it into your brain and they reinforce whatever beliefs that you have. Yeah. And so like, I mean, everybody's devices I haven't even watched that. What is that documentary on, or whatever it is on Netflix is like, The Social Dilemma or no?
Oh yeah. I heard about that. Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't watched it. I was like, I don't even need to see it. I know what it's about.
Yeah. My friend sent me a clip and it was it was extremely, I was like, many of us business owners, we probably already know it because we know how the algorithm works, you know, but I think for people who don't know, it's very shocking, you know?
Yes, exactly. You know, it feeds you what you want to see and what you believe in. It just continuously regurgitates it and it will seek the different articles and even the words that you speak. I swear the thoughts that you think. Yes.
100%.
I mean, because I've had situations, I'm sure everyone could be like, yep, you've thought about getting a new area rug for your dining room. Yeah. You haven't even said it. Yeah. You have just thought it. Yeah. And then suddenly you're getting focused on, you know, getting targeted by ads of every different like home design rug 100%. Channel.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I agree with you that this last 18 months, if I wasn't able to unplug from some of the media and all that and reconnect with nature, it would have been very difficult for me because especially right now when we're bombarded with so much information, like just so much fear mongering and just so much of like everything that's going wrong in the world, which by the way, I just talked about this on another podcast of mine, is that we as human beings, we are not designed to know every problem all over the planet. Like, do you understand how massive that is to our spirit? Like, to know all of the suffering going on all over the world. Like we're not designed to handle that. You know what I'm saying? We're designed to like see in our tribe what's going on. Cause obviously we want to help if someone's suffering, obviously like that's part of like who we are in our essence, but like to know the massive scale of things that are going wrong in the world. And especially the way it's perpetuated by media, because sometimes it's not as bad as it seems, but people, people, the media's job is to keep you engaged, right? And the
Yes.
engagement is by throwing porn at you. That's like fear all the time,
Yeah.
So it's like, we're not designed to do that. So it's so important for us. I mean, social media, if you think back of like 15 years from now, it was not really existent, right?
Yes.
Even 10 years from now, it wasn't to the scale that it is now.
Yeah.
So this is like a small blip that we've been exposed to just so much. And I think many of us haven't really learned how to like parent ourselves and say like, wait a minute, have I taken a break today? Have I stopped being on any type of media and just gone and put my feet in the ground, like just outside, just 5 minutes? Like, you know what I mean? It's like, there's just so much of that. That's why I created, and it's the freebie. It's called the Unplugged Challenge. And you can find it on my website, sarayagoub.com. But that's exactly what it is. It's not, I get we live in the real world. It's not like unplugged, meaning you don't use any media, because obviously we have to use some technology, but it's like, what are we consciously consuming and what are we unconsciously consuming, right? If we are getting onto our feed and we're just going through it and it's been 3 hours and then you're just like, whoa, I was just online for even an hour, right?
Yes.
And not only that, but like you're following all these accounts that are saying some negative stuff. And then by the time you get off, you feel like drained. And I truly believe it is a consciousness trap. It drains you of your life force energy because you're staring at this black screen. Yeah. And so instead, if we can just learn how to parent ourselves, set some timers, unfollow those negative accounts. And let me just tell you, when I unfollowed negative accounts, I'm not even saying negative where I've never followed negative accounts where people are just mean online or anything, right? Yeah. I'm talking about even at a point in time when I was just like so tired and drained, all the coaches online that were like, do more, hustle, grind, hustle. I was like, okay, you're getting unfollowed because I don't need more hustle. Like, and everybody's at different stages in life. Some people might need the hustle because maybe they've left corporate and they're starting a business and they might need that coach, and that's okay. But for me personally, I needed more of the people like you who are like, have you meditated? Like, here's some great ways to meditate. Here's some great ways to reconnect with nature. Here's some high frequency activities you can do. Like, those are the people that I needed to see on social. So I think it's real important for us to take some time and just really take inventory of who we're following, what we're consuming, what we're watching. Is it serving us? Is it expanding our consciousness? Is it helping our evolution? Is it helping us? Is it serving us? Or is it draining our energy? Does it feel vampiric? Do I feel like I'm trapped when I'm watching it? Do I feel drained when I stop, consuming it? You know what I'm saying? Is it not helping me in any way and keeping me in the rat race of the 3D matrix?
Yeah. And as creators, because a lot of people listening to us are also content creators. And so noticing the kind of content you yourself are putting out there, is it just like what is the purpose of it? Is it adding to, or is it taking from? And I personally find there's such a fine line between marketing your skill sets and how you can help people and pushing them off into the wrong direction.
Yes.
Like, I want to lead people. I want to show them like, I can be your guide and I can show you this way, but this isn't the only way. Right. And you have your own way.
Right.
But here's some ways. And I think that there's this fine line, because what marketers will teach you is like, this is the way that you market to people and how you talk to them. And you kind of like get them to buy your thing. Yeah. And which is good. Like there's a strategy behind it as a salesperson. But what I do that's different as a marketer, as a salesperson, is we're connecting on a different level. Yeah. We have to first feel a connection from a soul level. Like, why are you getting out of bed today? Right. Why am I on that track? Why am I on that bus that can't stop? Like, what is actually going on a soul level that is leading me to help other people? Yeah. And who is that person, or who are those people that I'm helping and why? Right. And from that deeper place of like really connecting a different, like a soul essence, like we are at a different level. And so like from that place, how can I serve? From that place, how can I write an email? From that place, how can I create a podcast episode? Yeah. And so we're creating from a different place as well. But something that you had said too, around consciously consuming. And I also love that about your Instagram feed too, is like you do like a community check-in, like, how are you feeling?
Yeah.
And it's so human, it's like,
Yeah.
one of my friends, Vanessa, she has a company called Creative Human, and she talks about like the humanness of like, it's really just like the soul connection, not really humanness. But I love that you connect with people, and I love that you share, clearing space, and I love that you share getting out in nature and smiling, and like you also have really funny things that you share, funny memes and stuff that I get super into. But I want people to grab that freebie as well. We'll have that linked in the show notes for the Unplugged Challenge. And I think this is a good conversation for people to consider. Also, what's coming back to is the you mentioned about like when you were connecting, like there was that kind of heavier entity, that darker energy. And I don't want to move past that, because I think it's actually really important that we talk about it. We kind of skate past it. And I know that there are people who are like, yes, I've had that experience. And some people who are like, what is that? That kind of scares me a little bit to hear about that.
Sure.
I'm happy to share some experiences. I know you had your experience as well. So you were able to kind of be inquisitive and be like, what's up with this? Who are you? I'm not really sure I like this. I'm going to kind of check out. I'm going to only plug into source energy healing. I feel like that's a very advanced thing to do, because I think most people do get stuck in that, and they can kind of get manipulated and taken advantage of, and listen to, what they believe is their intuition or a spirit guide that's really got their best interest at heart, but it doesn't. And so I want to kind of pause right there, because in all of my courses, my intro to intuition, my Akashic records, anytime I'm taking people on a journey, all of the things that I do, if you've done meditation with me, you've done this with me, which is to clear the space. And you did mention becoming a clear channel.
Yes.
You mentioned you were plugging only into source and God energy healing. You mentioned you were cleansing yourself. You mentioned you're doing Epsom salt bath. So a lot of people aren't familiar with that level of like purifying.
Yes.
And I know, this is part of these spiritual processes. Like, the way that I kind of look at it is like, if you imagine you're wearing like a white suit, and everywhere you walk, you're kind of getting like splattered with other colors and other things. And you kind of just live your life with like all this stuff all over you. And you think that those are your thoughts, and you think that those are your opinions, and you think that's your sadness. And you think that that's your anger. You think that's your joy, but it could be from other people that you're also picking up on. And especially, I believe we're all very empathic. It's just, various levels. Like,
agreed.
We are human. Like some people are like, are you an empath? I'm like, are you breathing? Like,
we're all empath. Like
stupid question. Take the quiz.
Yeah.
So yes. Okay.
I'll save my time. I know the answer.
Is it a yes or no? It's always a yes. There's no yes. But as empaths, we're always picking up on stuff. And as children, we're kind of taught not to believe it, taught not to think anything of it. Don't look at the monster in the corner. It's fine. But when we are not consciously clearing our space, consciously clearing ourselves, and consciously plugging into only source energy, it leaves us open and vulnerable to other energies. This is a serious conversation. This is like, and it's not meant to scare people, but like we're kind of like touching on, there are other dimensions, there are other beings, there are other things, forces that are just not here to serve us in our highest and best. I had a personal experience. It was actually when I was doing massage, and this woman came in with this like entity. And it stuck with me. Like I got to hang on to it. And it was only, and I think I was probably like 20 years old. And it was only when I reached out to my energy healer, and I was like, listen, something is with me, and I don't really know what it is. It makes me think different things. I see different things. I feel different things. And like, you've seen movies where they show you like, blah, like scary visions. And I was like, I know this is not mine.
Right.
And I have had friends, we have some other mutual friends too, who've had experiences where like their skin gets scratched, like physical reactions, not just the thoughts that you're thinking and like, how you believe the world to be, but like physically it takes on your body as well. Have you had those kinds of things going on? I haven't.
Me personally, they cannot physically harm me because as you said, like advanced, this is a past life thing. I unlocked as I came into spirituality, automatically it was unlocked for me, the protection that we can do. Now, I won't say automatically, to a certain level automatically, because like, for example, when that, for me, I'll tell you, in the astral plane, which, by the way, I just want to say for your audience that if you know that you're in the astral plane, I will say, knowing how the dark entities work, the astral plane, the lower astral, which is what most humans can go to if you haven't cleared your heart chakra correctly, right? So if your heart chakra, if you have any blocks, most of the time you can't get past the lower astral. And the lower astral right now is infiltrated with dark entities because of what's happening on the planet, and because so many of us are awakening and expanding and our light is becoming stronger. The dark entities, just like what you said, that customer that came into you, that dark entity was attached to, your light, I guarantee you, was brighter than hers, because it probably was draining her of hers. So her light was probably dimmer, and it is attracted to the bright light because it gets more energy from you. So as this is happening to us, we have to really take into consideration, we are in a spiritual battle right now, a spiritual war. The light is always going to win. The light obliterates the dark. You know what I'm saying? It's not like we don't have to fight it. But we have to be conscious that there is the dark. They've trained us in movies and stuff like that to be afraid of like ghosts. So most people, when they're approached by a ghost, because they don't put their energy shield up, and because their channel might be a little weaker, because people are going into meditations and astral and all that stuff, like drunk or high, and you have to be very careful, because when you are drunk or high or anything like that, outside of proper, I know plant medicine is different, but even plant medicine outside of the right container, you have to be careful, because what you've done now is you've dimmed your light and you've poked holes in your energetic field.
That's a great way to put it. That's a great way to put it.
You know exactly what, because I'm sure you probably see it. I just feel it. Right. And I can tell when someone's high or drunk or something, and they have all these holes. Now, in real 3D life, I mean, you have your repercussions that you pay. But when you go into a meditation, or when you try to go to another dimension while drunk and while high, now you've just opened yourself up to all kinds of entity attachments. And a lot of times they'll come to you and they'll say, they'll be tricky. They don't come as a devil with horns with like googly mouth, right? They might, but in most cases they don't. They come to you as like nice spirits. So what happens, I think, when people get physically attacked is that they have some trauma that hasn't been healed. So there's a little bit of a hole somewhere in their entity where this thing can attach, right? And then number two, they haven't been trained properly on how to close their energetic field or heal themselves or anything like that. So then this thing can have more power, and then they are not sovereign on their being, because they're scared. They've been trained to be scared of this thing. So when you don't show sovereignty, like I am in, control of me. Like this is you command your space. Like this is my clear space. This is my domain. I have cleared it. Now get out. You know, when you can say that, when you're like, I don't trust you, get out, they get out, or you can come out of the meditation and they can't hurt you. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's the things that I would consider this dark arts training. I don't know if anybody's a Harry Potter fan, but
my son is literally wearing my son is literally wearing a Harry Potter shirt today. We were on our walk today and he was talking about doing spells while we're walking. I was like, I love this child.
We have to get your son and my daughter together. They would have a blast. And I don't even know what crazy magic they would do, because like my daughter loves Harry Potter, and she like tells me things about it. But in Harry Potter, like one of the things that they teach him, and I know this is like make believe, but it's there's a lot of truth in some fiction that we watch. But they teach you about dark arts training, and this is something I think everyone, especially now, especially if you're a meditator, especially if you're going to different dimensions, we have to learn how to properly command our space, properly put a shield up, properly clear and cleanse our space, properly heal, because the healing is what even allows this in the first place. And so all of these things together, once we do them, we have nothing to fear. I mean, you know what I mean? Like I'll go into a space now if I wanted to go, but I would not touch the 4D right now, not with anything. The lower astral, I would not go there. But if I were to go there, my light is so bright. There's nothing they can do to me, but I'm not going to give them my energy because I know that they've infiltrated the 4D. So I wouldn't go there. I don't do astral projection.
No. And so there's so many conversations within this conversation that I'm like, oh my God. So when we talk about protecting ourselves and having sovereignty, it's not just when you're going into meditation, it's every day. With the second you wake up. And I do have a lot of service. My dog just yawned. I don't know if you just heard that. He's like clearing the space.
Thank you.
Honey, he's my boy.
Those are awesome.
Also, like sound is healing. Okay. Yeah. So, when we are going into our social situations, our work life, I know there's so many people who are service providers, hairstylists, massage therapists, Reiki practitioners. If you're just like, or even coaches, like you're doing virtual coaching, doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're not clearing yourself, clearing your space and setting up your space and then clearing after, clearing during. I mean, I've done like countless podcasts on this. I'm like, how many times I got to tell people to like clear their stuff? You know, it's not a joke.
Even social media posts, you know, even social media posts. I mean, there's so many cord attachments that people can do. There's right now, especially with this great divide that's happening in the 3D, people are like getting in arguments with people on social media. And I'm like, do you understand that that's an energetic attachment that you've just made with this person? Why do you want that? Like detach, cut it off, you know, dissolve it, disintegrate.
Yeah. And that's what it is. It is a core. It's an energy core when we do all of that stuff. And you also mentioned doing like the magic and having like it's like, it is reality, but it's not reality. Our kids are doing these spells. We're doing these spells. Our word is our wand. We are literally making incantations every day. But as far as protecting yourself, all you have to do is set your intention to plug in. You don't have to have like a specific type of crystal and a specific type of incense. It's a simple intention to set before you do anything. And to clear yourself, you know, even if you have a singing bowl or you can make the sound yourself. I clear my house and my kids come walking around and they start doing like sound healing with me. Like, like, let's do it. Let's clear the space.
Let's do it.
And I think it is important that we do this stuff with our kids as well. But what you also mentioned about like with that entity glomming onto my light. And I know like I can say this and I know with 100% certainty, this has happened to you too, because you're a bright light, we tend to attract stuff like a moth to the flame. And it can both be like so exciting. People come to you like, oh my God, I will tell you everything about myself. And you attract people like a magnet. I mean, I have always had that happen to me. And there are also people who will specifically try to stuff out my light. They will go out of their way to try to stuff it out, to stop it, to stop me, to stop like whatever it is that they need to do to try to cut it out. And I compare it to like, if you had a flashlight and you just shined it like in the corner or under like a bookshelf or something, you're like, there's a lot of cobwebs and shit under there. Like there's a pen cap and there's like an old Cheerio and some stuff. But people don't want to see their stuff. They don't want to see the cobwebs. They want to look the other way, pretend like it doesn't exist. And so all of a sudden you come and shine this bright light and they're like, oh, no. Oh, no, you don't. I'm not doing that. And so we can also attract that as well. But I also love what you said about like, there's kind of like this war happening, that there's this light and this dark. You don't have to fight it. You just shine your light and you hold this space. I really love that, how you said that.
I totally agree with you. And I say this a lot, that it's like, we're a lighthouse, you know? And so like when you're light at the beginning, like if you haven't done any of the work yet, you're still a lighthouse. Your light just doesn't shine as bright. Right. And so you might be going around life and like, no one's attacking you. No one's coming and trying to attach to you because it's like your light is a little bit dimmer. But once the light shines brighter and brighter and brighter, all the ships out in the sea that are out there are going to come and try to come closer and closer to your light. And so the more, it's just exactly what you said, but it's the more that we are aware of that and are conscious of it. I think that's the problem, that when you see a lot of like new age teachers and spiritual teachers, is that some, because they feel like this is negative and it's bringing down their vibration, and it's taking them out of 5D. I'm saying all this with air quotes, by the way, because it's like, this is truth. There is no higher thing than truth and enlightenment, right? That's a high vibration. Well, there's love, but you know what I mean? It's like, this is a high vibration. Anytime you're taking anything that's done in the dark and you bring it up to the light, that's not negative.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like, that's what we in the spiritual community should definitely be hitting on, especially considering what we're going in right now, is that all these dark entities are frantic right now. And we can see it. It plays out in the 3D, but it plays out in all dimension.
Yes.
3D is the last to get it. So this is their end, what they're on all stops you. And like you mentioned, you have a lot of people who are business owners and marketers on here. It's like, sometimes they'll use random things to come at you, is like technology, for example. Right now it's saying my internet connection is weak out of nowhere, but when you speak about these things, I can't tell you how many times I've gone on the podcast. We've checked everything out beforehand. Everything works fine. And then we go to record and we're going to be talking about this exact thing. And then guess what? Interference comes in.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And it's just anything it can do to veer you off your track of following your organic timeline, which is serving humanity, doing what it is that you've been called to do on this planet during this time. If they can use anything against you, they will use it against you, whether it's a entity attachment or it's technical interference. You know?
Yeah. The tech interference. I mean, I have at minimum like a dozen crystals usually surrounding me because of that. And for anybody who's known me for any length of time, that technical interference happens.
Yeah.
And it always, and when you were just talking about that, it was like, it's like, it is what it is. Like the energy that shifts, it can only take on so much on the technology. If you are blasting energy, it can only handle so much. But when I first started recording meditations, I would sit in my closet because it had great sound.
Yeah.
And I would close my eyes. I would go, I started my garage band. I was like, I think I'm doing this right. And I would start it and I would just go deep and instantaneously. And then I open my eyes. Not only is the thing not running, but my computer is off.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm like, did it catch anything I just said? And I'd open it back up and it would be like, it had a reset error. Do you want to submit a thing? I'm like, what just happened? And so I would be like starting my meditations with like one eye open, like, you with me? You're going to stay with me. And then I would just like, okay, which crystal do I need right now to hold the energy so that I can do this meditation and it stays.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then that's how I started to shift, because it was like I'd be blasting it, and people who've known me for a while, they're like, oh yeah, that's pretty typical. She's clearing the space. Like, that's why, because they're like, there's a pause. People be like panicking and they're like, don't worry. She'll be back.
She'll be back. Yeah.
Maybe I'm not, whatever.
It works against us sometimes. And it's like, that's why it's like when you surrender to it and you laugh about it and you grab a crystal and you do whatever, cleanse the space and see if it comes back. And some days it doesn't come back, and that's okay too. It is what it is. It's like the more you resist it or fight it, the stronger it gets. And then it's like, oh, okay, I can mess with Emily every time, but if you're just like, whatever, this time you win this time, I won't do it right now. I'll record it in an hour from now. And then guess what? It turns out just fine,
Yeah, exactly. So I hope that everybody listening to this has learned, has kind of opened up. I mean, my intention was really just to have an open conversation. And, I'm glad we got to talk about all of the various things that we talked about today. And for anybody who is left feeling a little bit like on edge or concerned, please just take a deep breath, let it go, go hug a tree. It's going to be fine. There's nothing that you need to be concerned about, worried about. If you do feel like any heaviness or stuff coming up for you, just realize it's coming up for the surface for you to feel it and acknowledge it, and just notice like, what's going on? What am I thinking? What am I feeling? You don't have to stuff it down or clear it all away. Just like, take a look at it, feel it, and then just go, all right, let it go.
Yeah. Our triggers are our biggest teachers. Like every time I would have a trigger come up, I would be like, what is this teaching me? And many times that was like some of my biggest epiphanies, was just to see, okay, this is triggering me and what's going on with it, And then I just do also want to add that I totally agree with you there. We on the light side have nothing to fear. We're so much more powerful than we know. That's why there's so much propaganda and everything spewed at us to diminish us of our power, have us put our power to an external source. If we can just reclaim our power, and it's as simple as setting the intention, like you mentioned, Emily, is like every morning you wake up and you're like, I am powerful. I reclaim all of my power back to me now. And I do not allow any negative energy to penetrate my field. And that is literally all that it takes. You feel into that and you are like unstoppable. unstoppable. Like there is nothing anyone can do to stop you.
Aligned and unstoppable. In
That's
fact.
right.
Oh, hey, oh, call back.
Whoa, I love that. Perfect.
Thank you, Spare, for that one.
That's right. I love the name of your podcast. It's wonderful. It's perfect. You know.
So good. Sara, it's been a gift to have you. I will definitely have you back. This was so much fun. And for those of you who are new to Sara, Sara, how can people find you? And we'll mention your Unplug challenge too as well, but how can people find you and connect with you?
Absolutely. Yes. First of all, thank you so much for having me. I know you said you don't have a lot of guests all the time, so I'm honored and I'm extremely happy that we were able to connect like this. And this has been such a wonderful conversation. And for all the listeners, thank you for taking the time to listen to this. You can always connect with me on Renegade Revolution Radio. Actually, all of the stuff that we've been talking about with the dimensions and stuff. And it's funny because it's on a break right now because of the technical interference, but that's okay. We'll be back next week because we're having a Matrix series where I'm talking about the 3D, the 4D, the 5D, and beyond. So we're talking about all of the dimensions and we're really getting into it. So I would love for you to join us there at Renegade Revolution Radio.
Super good. And I'm a listener. I love your podcast. I like to listen when I'm mowing my lawn because it's kind of mindless. And I love just being out there, but I have my little noise canceling headphones and I just I love it. I love listening to you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you guys. And everybody, just thank you for being our avid listeners. If you enjoyed this episode, as always, take a good screenshot, tag me and Sara in your Instagram stories. We love to connect with you and just see what really popped out to you, what resonated, what made you go, what made you go, that's not true.
I love getting that kind of feedback too. You know?
Yeah, it's good. It's a good conversation to have, but always take a screenshot. And if you have not left a review yet on iTunes, please do so. That's the best way to give us love as podcasters. You know, we do this out of the love of our life. We love to do this and give you as much free content as possible that can help you in your life. And the best gift you can give us is a nice review and leaving those little comments to let other people know how much you enjoyed it. All right, till next time, lots of love to you guys. Thanks so much for being here.
Bye.